What's up, everybody, and welcome to PW 24/7 Radio Live. This is our debut, our maiden voyage, right here on PW247radio.com. It's myself, Stan Grubb, and my co-host, Mr. or is it Lord? Do we call you Lord? Do we call you?
At this point, it's okay. You can call me Mr. Devore, but for the fans out there, Lord Everett Devore, God bless you, Stan Grubb, for allowing me to have this opportunity to share the airwaves with you.
No, sir. It is my privilege, not yours. Let me just put it to you that way. And I gotta be honest. The first time I met you in person, now I had seen you perform, and our mutual friend Brian had worked with you before, briefly in UCW in years past. I used to say your name as Devore.
Okay. Yep.
So we get to UCW. This is a little inside baseball for everybody, but what the hell, right? So we get to UCW, and we are doing our own version of commentary. You hadn't even offered us the job yet. And every chance I get, I'm saying your name. Mr. Devore, Mr. Devore, Mr. Devore. And then Brian says something, or Rob says something, and I'm like, Lord Devore. And they both look at me, and they're like, hey, stupid, that's not his name. It's Devore. And I'm like, what? Come on, man. It's Devore. You got to say it right. And they wouldn't bite. They wouldn't go with it.
Dude, it's okay. Over the decades, I've had people pronounce a name wrong. I've had to spell it wrong. At the end of the day, I'm just happy to be a part of this business.
Well, you've done a lot.
Looking back at that, that first show that you guys came to, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but we had that first inaugural show at the airport, and as I was walking by, I haphazardly just started listening to the things that you guys are saying, and I was like, wow, they really have that flow, they have that chemistry. And I looked at Raph, and I'm like, hey, for those that don't know, Raph is Diego. And I looked at Raph, and I said, hey, man, going forward, we want to do television. We want to do this. We want to do that. What do you think about those guys being our commentary team? And he's like, what do you think? I said, well, for me, it's a no-brainer, because the things that you guys were talking about, the things you guys are saying, there was no script, there was no format, there was nothing. You guys were just shooting from the hip, calling it as you saw it from that table in that airport hangar. And it just went from there. And you guys I can't say enough about you.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere. I'll definitely take it. There we are. We're brand spanking new, wet behind the ears, as Steve Austin would say, green as goose poop. Just sitting there and taking it all in. Like, we're in podcast heaven, because we're getting interviews with talent. They're local, in the hottest damn day of the summer, of course, in the middle of an airport hangar, which was a sweet, sweet location. And it was one of the things that we talked about. Look, if we never do anything else, if we just get to do commentary for one show, even if we're not paid, if we're just there and we do it and everybody laughs at us, who cares? We get to do it, right?
Right.
So we're doing commentary, and this is a little known fact that we had the microphone on a tripod on the desk, and it was falling over because of the noise and the vibrations in the room. So we had to pick it up. So we pick up the microphone, and we're about midway through the main event. And you remember, the noise level was insane.
Yeah.
So we're broadcasting, and by this point we're shouting. We're literally shouting into this snowball mic that we got. I think Brian got it from Amazon. And when we looked down at the laptop, and we got through halfway through the main event, we looked down at the laptop, and the laptop's battery had died.
Oh no.
We were so pissed. But it was I'm trying to describe this the right way. it was the perfect mix of a fan getting a chance to finally cross over into just like unheard of territory. And that is, folks, this conversation in and of itself is exactly why PW 24/7 radio exists. I have a little background. So wrestling itself has been a freaking love of mine since I was 8. Mr. Devore just told you, I mean, he's been in the business, he's been in the ring. As many would say, his bump card is pretty full.
Yeah. I was just talking about this early with Derek Flair. I started training in 1988, and my first match was 1989. So, yeah, my bump card pretty full.
And you've worked all over the East Coast. Have you worked on the West Coast? I thought you said you had.
Yes, I've had the privilege. I've worked in 48 of all of the states in the United States, and I've worked down in Mexico. The only thing that I didn't get to do in my tours was I always wanted to go to Japan. And the one time I had the opportunity to go to Japan, personal things in my life prevented me from doing that tour. And I've always kicked myself for that because, woulda, coulda, shoulda. What would have happened if I would have went to Japan? But I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. It was a wonderful career. I got to work for ECW. I got to work for USWA. I got to work for WCW. I got to work for back then, the WWF. So I can't really complain about my career.
No. And you've worked and done a lot of different things with a lot of different people for an expansive time that allows you the benefit of being able to look at it from so many different perspectives, from the 70s and 80s into that when you debuted in 89, from your fandom to when you debuted, you could look at it from that a very, very old school mentality.
Yes.
If somebody was talking to you and you were under the learning tree, you shut the heck up and you let them say what they had to say. And if you didn't, you could be excommunicated basically.
Oh, absolutely. My first trainer was Rufus Jones, God rest his soul. Back in the day, when I tried to break in, I followed the company for almost a year, putting up the ring, tearing down the ring, getting the guys a coffee, whatever, just for the opportunity for a tryout match. Because, back then it's not like today. Today, if you've got enough cash, you can get a tryout match tomorrow. It doesn't mean you're going to go anywhere, but you can get a tryout match and get quote unquote training. And back then it wasn't that way. The business was protected and you had to prove yourself worthy for even a tryout. And that first tryout, I'm not ashamed to say it, Rufus broke my nose and swelled both my eyes shut. And it was just a test. And, hey, has this kid got what it was? Because back then I was 6'3", maybe 160, 170 pounds dripping wet. And, he went in there, he did what he had to do. At the end of the day, we got through with the training session and he looked at me and he said, "Hey kid, are you going to come back?" And I said, "Yep." And, he didn't think so because when I came back the next week, I walked through the doors and he was like, "You know what? I would have never expected you to come back." And, looking back through the years, I appreciated things like that because nothing was given. It was 100% earned through hard work, and determination.
And I mean, you didn't have a choice. If you wanted to be in it, you had to risk everything, literally.
Oh, absolutely. When I decided that this is what I wanted to do, my parents wanted me to go into, excuse me, my mother was a registered nurse for 37 years, and she wanted me to do that. She wanted me to do anything but pro wrestling. And when I told her this is what I want to do, she pretty much was like, are you kidding me? And I forbid you to do this because her being a registered nurse, specifically in the ER unit, she saw people and the results of their poor choices in life. And the last thing she wanted was her son to come in there because a 300-pound guy picked him up and power bombed him or superplexed him, and it didn't go right. So you're right. You risk it all, because I walked away from everything that my life was at that point, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. And over the years, not a lot of people know this, but I lived out of my car for about 4 or 5 years. And, during that time, we were going from town to town, city to city, and, we were making $20, $30 a night. And I would get a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and a bag of potatoes, and that's what we lived on through the week. And, you hope that you hit a double shot on the weekend, that you'd have enough money for a hotel, just to shower, wash your gear, etc. But I don't look at that as hard times. I look at that as a proving ground, because we were willing to do whatever to make that dream happen.
And of course, folks, you're listening to Lord Everett Devore. Lord Everett Devore.
Everett Devore.
Of the Diego and Devore Show. These guys are going to be joining PW 24/7 very shortly as the network continues to prepare. We're building the site out right now. There's a crap ton of dust that you're seeing, and I want to thank everybody that's visited, because I'll be honest, I had no expectation of traffic to the site while I was building it. But I knew I had to get a placeholder and something in place, something to say, we're here still. For those of you that know me, my biography is definitely not as interesting as Mr. Devore, but I can tell you
brother, don't sell yourself short, man.
Well, I don't like to. All right, fine. I'll brag a little bit, whatever.
Brag, brother. And I don't even think it's bragging, but just don't sell yourself short.
Well, I mean, I've been doing this little podcast gig for almost 10 years now. 2011 is when I started a little show called Wrestle Rage Radio with my buddy Corey. And he and I did the show for the better part of 2 years. We had a lot of great interviews, a lot of good successes. But one of the things we learned along the way was it's not done alone. Yeah, I mean, we did a fan show for fans by fans, but we learned that you learn from networking. You learn from meeting other people. And always we thought, man, how do we get our word out further? How do we reach further? And we came across a group of guys, and these guys were very entrepreneurial, very smart, very tech savvy, and they had this little thing that they had going on where they're broadcasting live. Now, we were broadcasting live through another platform. It just didn't serve our needs, and it cost money. These guys had an internet radio station. And even today, that still boggles the mind. I remember dial-up internet. I remember getting in huge trouble with my parents for running up ridiculous phone bills.
Yep.
Because I wanted to be online.
Yep.
To this day, I still tell my mom, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I was such an asshole kid.
You know what? That's true, because back in the day, it's not like today where you can click on the internet and post your resume out there. Yep. Back in the day, even as a worker, there was no internet for us to go, hey, I want to be on your show. We had to make those phone calls. And, back then, we're aging ourselves.
Right.
I ran up that phone bill just like you did. Hey, man, I'd love to come work for you. Okay, well, don't know. You make that drive, and, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But that's how you cut your teeth in the business.
Yeah, and the thing that I learned along the way was it's okay to meet people smarter than you and in terms somewhat better than you, because you're learning and you're growing with them. So anyway, for those of you that have heard of PW 24/7 before, you've heard the phrase wrestling radio evolved a long time ago. And let me tell you, guys like Nick Anthony, Daniel Correa, Aaron Kendrick, I have nothing but love and respect for those guys because they taught me a crap ton of information. But there's people out there right now that are seeing this for the first time, and they've never really discovered what it means. So let's lay it out. PW 24/7 Radio is a 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week streaming internet radio platform for wrestling podcasts.
Now,
say that again.
Now, hold on. Is this where Triple H jumps in and does the $9.99 per month promo?
No, because I got to be fair. I gotta make sure we show some love to our fan base, because the crazy thing is we have a fan base that's actually kind of coming into its own pretty quickly. Actually surprised the hell out of me.
Yeah, I mean, today's numbers jumped
Yeah.
dramatically.
And I'm loving what I'm seeing. I'm loving the exposure. I'm loving the excitement. But PW 24/7 Radio, Wrestling Radio Evolved, it's not a tagline. It's legit. It's internet radio. We're taking the podcast that you know and love, and we're putting it on the air live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you're going to hear replays. You might hear some interviews. You might hear live events. Actually, that's kind of the plan. You're going to hear some live events. You're going to hear original content. We're going to go out there and we're going to find the hot podcasts of the week. We're going to find the most talented ladies, the most talented men, and we're going to get them behind a microphone and say, hey, you got a story. I want you to tell it. That's the deal. Wrestling for me growing up was all about the storyteller. And by storyteller, I don't mean whether or not you liked Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair. That's a debate that on Corner to Corner we could have every day of the week. What I'm talking about is the guys that called the matches. Let me tell you why. Podcasting, we already know, is a storytelling platform. It's how you get your message out, regardless of what type. But for wrestling, you had guys like Gordon Soley, Jim Ross, Joey Styles, Paul Heyman. Literally, they could call a match and you could hear it, but you could see it with your eyes closed. That was what I envisioned when I started doing PW 24/7 some time ago. So when I noticed that it was available again, I was excited. A little too excited. I maybe marked out a tad. I maybe, jumped up and down.
Hey, nothing wrong with marking out.
No,
if you're not a mark for this business, then why are you in it?
And I went straight to you. I went straight to you and said, look, I have an idea. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's an idea, and I think it's a big one. And I've had faith in this idea for a long time. I've worked with some tremendously talented people in the past. I'm not trying to name drop, but so much because I want to be fair to these folks and respect their privacy, especially if they don't want me to really be involved with them. But here's the deal. There's so many people that have blazed a trail for us before we got here that I felt, you know what? First off, I don't like the way it shut down the first time. And why the hell not? Why not bring it back? And let's just bring back and have some damn fun. So I reached out to a couple of friends. Corner to Corner will, of course, be on PW 24/7. The Dave and Diego show. Excuse me, the Devore and Diego show.
No, Diego and Devore.
Diego and Devore, no problem.
Make
so
sure
Diego,
you get that right.
You know what? $20. $20
Sip a beer for the working man.
I'll do the Dr. Pepper. $20 says at a UCW show, you won't go out there and tell the crowd, excuse me, it is not Devore, you inbred rednecks.
Oh,
it is Devore.
No. Here we go. The gauntlet has been thrown.
You don't have enough hair on your peaches to do it. I'm telling you right
now. The hair on the peaches? Okay.
I said PG-13. We're trying to be respectful.
You know what? The first UCW show, don't get mad when I come out there, center the ring, and I pull you up in the ring, and I show you the hair on my peaches.
Oh, Lord.
And we do an in-ring promo.
It's a children's show. It's
Stan
a
Grubb
show.
And Devore.
All I can tell you, folks, is if you're at a UCW show here Maybe not in 2020, because good Lord, this year sucks. Um,
Oh man.
but
Who
you know,
you
and
telling, brother?
that was the other reason I wanted to bring this network back. You know what? There's so much negative stuff, and we're going to talk about it because, first off, it's too much to not acknowledge. Secondly, It's big news, and we really got to identify it. And third, you're an opinionated guy. I'm an opinionated guy. You know,
Just a bit.
We got to put our 2 cents out there. So I thought about it, and the more I thought about it, you know, hey, this is the platform. This is the time. This is how we do this. So, you know, here we are, PW 24/7 live, first maiden voyage. It's Stan and Devore. All because I botched the name. I don't mind admitting when I screw something up. It's okay.
Hey, if you don't botch it, it didn't happen.
Right. So let's start with the obvious. Let's go ahead and dive into some news here. First and foremost, I got to ask you, because I know you're pretty tuned in, but there's always a guy or a person that doesn't know who other wrestlers are, that kind of thing, because they're kind of into their own thing, right? So have you ever heard the name David Starr?
Yes.
All right. How about
now? Admittedly, earlier tonight, I had heard the name but didn't know who he was. But since we talked about it before we did this show, I went and did my research, and I was like, "Holy crap!"
Well, okay. How about this? If you hadn't heard about David Starr till today, I got you. How about Joey Ryan?
Yeah.
How about Jim Cornette?
The lollipop guy? Sure, Cornette.
Okay.
He makes people mad on an amazing level.
You won't believe the stuff that broke today.
Hit me with it, brother.
Okay, so first and foremost, David Starr outed yesterday as a sexual predator. And of course, the first thing this guy does, what a piece of work he is, jumps on his social media and says, and I quote, "I'm not a sexual predator, but," and everything else after that is invalid because he says,
once you hit the word "but," it's all a moot point.
And, you know, the people that came out with stories about him, by the way, was more than 10. Anybody with any experience in the law enforcement, an attorney, or psychiatric knows that it takes right around 5 or 6 people telling the same story for you to really believe, that's a lot of corroborating evidence.
Well, you know, coming from a law enforcement background, it isn't even that many. Once you have more than 3, you know, the old saying goes, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
Now, that being said, you don't want to crucify somebody before all the facts come out. But once you go from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 10, it's no longer, oh, this is just a story. Mm-hmm. There's some substance to this.
Now, and here's what I'll go out on record and say. I do not know David Starr personally. I've seen him perform. Right. Very talented in the ring. I enjoyed his work.
Yeah,
but I also,
the thing I saw, he's a very talented worker.
I also know the person, not personally, but the person who initially came out. And by the way, she's told this story since 2009. So,
wow,
David, I'm sorry, buddy, but you have no leg to stand on it. And hey, I'm not calling you a rapist because that's not my job. I'm not doing that. What I will say is that these stories that are coming out and these screenshots of texts and these stories coming out from these young ladies,
yep.
If in fact you come back to the States, because I think right now you're overseas.
Yep.
You have a lot of things to answer
you know,
for.
That right there, you know, word of mouth is one thing. But when people start pulling up screenshots, there's no room to wiggle.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. It's right there in black and white.
And hopefully, even if, all right, so let's say nobody goes to jail, because it's highly probable. I hope this doesn't happen this way, but it's possible, right?
Right now.
Right. I mean, we got people walking off the job, throwing their keys down, saying,
yep.
Somebody else can do it. Somebody else clean up that mess. And not to put down, we're not going to dive down a political rabbit hole here.
No.
But I will say this: not all cops are bad. Not all cops are good. The people walking off the job, that's the wrong decision. The people in that job feeling left out, they're not wrong to feel that way. Don't get me wrong. This is not a one-size-fits-all situation. This is a very slippery slope.
Absolutely. And especially me coming from a law enforcement background, I concur.
Yeah.
Not all cops are bad. The majority of them are good. And that's where I'll leave it.
And
not
that,
all
I think
cops
that's,
are bad, and the
yep.
ones that are bad need to be dealt with.
Yeah. And those that are good should be helping to deal with it. And I think the ones that are truly good would. And I really do. I think that's as far down the rabbit hole we'll go for that.
Yep.
So let's just go to the other side
Works
of
for
this.
me.
Let's go to the other side of the hypothetical here. These guys that are getting called out right now, Joey Ryan, David Starr.
Now, hold on. I knew about the David Starr thing. What about Joey Ryan? Enlighten me.
Joey's thing, even though it's still gross to me, not quite as surprising. You'll never guess what he's accused of.
You know what, dude? I don't mean to sound like I'm trying to keep this a PG.
PG-13, right.
PG-13. I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but for a guy that pulls a lollipop out of his crotch or does the penis flip.
Right.
I mean, where do you go from there? So enlighten me. What has Joey Ryan been accused of?
So apparently Mr. Ryan just exposes his junk to anybody in the locker room, whether they like it or not. He's basically the unwanted Ric Flair story, is basically what I'm hearing. Because, Tony Schiavone has a tremendous amount of Ric Flair stories, which I love. But Flair gets away with it.
I don't mean to laugh, but, in today's world, it is what it is. But back in the day, somebody showing the rat brains, it was not uncommon. You took it in stride. You sat there in the locker room, you're putting your gear on, you're getting ready to go out there, and you look over and the rat brains are sitting on your shoulder.
Oh, Jesus.
And you just kind of go, you have two choices at that point. You either get mad at it or sell it and go, no, that's nice. I've seen better.
I think this is why I could have never been in the locker room back during that time, because I'd have probably just punched it. Either that or threw up. Disgusting. But, all right, so that's the lighter side, right? So Joey Ryan's accused of flashing his junk at people that don't want him to do it. I get it. Nobody wants that.
And I get it. Nobody wants to see that.
Right. So then we go to the just insanely weird. By the way, some of the other names that are listed, WWE, NXT UK talents, including WWE's Cruiserweight champion Jordan Devlin.
Really?
Yeah. Pete Dunne comes out and publicly distances himself from all of the accused, continues to be an upstanding guy. Promotions left and right are dumping these talents. Great job for you guys, by the way. Because you have to. You have to distance yourself. Here in Virginia, we had a promotion that was doing pretty well, I thought. And the guy got caught doing some stupid crap. And what happened? He burnt. He got burnt up. Now, I'll let you know, I found out today from one of our favorite fans in Virginia that apparently he's helping run one of the companies we thought someone else was running.
Really?
Yeah, we could do inside baseball later. But apparently he's got his hands in it.
No, do tell.
So I
don't name names, but do tell.
Like I said, one of our favorite fans here in Virginia that comes to all of our UCW shows. She's a great, great gal, and we appreciate the hell out of her. Who also, by the way, had a crazy story that she told about an experience at WrestleCade about a talent that harassed her. Thankfully, she was able to get out of that situation. I'm happy for her on that. Yeah, the details she did put on Twitter publicly. Again, it takes a tremendous amount of strength to acknowledge not just what you've had to deal with, but what you have to do to get better, to heal. And some of these stories are just, wow.
Because, look, coming from the old school, we did a lot of things that by today's standard would be unacceptable,
Mm-hmm.
but they were, and I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying it is what it is for that time period.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was par for the course. And, I'm not talking about the more serious stuff we're talking about today, but the ribbing, the rat brains, etc., that was all part of the locker room
Mm-hmm.
forever and a day. But it's very disheartening to hear that today it's not just good nature ribbing, that it's gone to assault or unwanted advances,
Mm-hmm.
because that just, there was a, I don't know how to put this. There was an understanding in this business back in the day, and you had people that did ribbing, and whether the ribbing was by today's standards bad, but there was no maliciousness behind it. There was no, I'm going to do this specifically to make this person feel bad. And it just destroys me now that there is no there's no line that some of these guys won't cross, and I don't understand that. Or girls, I don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
one-sided on it. I don't understand where things went so wrong that a rib was no longer a rib. And the thing with what you just said with Joey Ryan, you know it was one thing for instance, me and another guy to do rat brains to each other, but to walk up to another person in the locker room, a total stranger or a female worker, the woman worker, and think that that's okay, that's, to me, that's just mind boggling, because, as laid back as yesterday was, we never crossed that line. And I don't understand why today's workers think it's okay to do that.
And it's a dangerous time right now. And the scary thing is, it's not just the folks over in the UK. We said Joey Ryan, but there's others on this list, and this came from at PW Truth Project, where this is a group of people that have literally spent their time listening to these just insane stories that have come from the victims. Some of them, most of them now are all over Twitter. All you have to do is go to Twitter, pull up the hashtag of speaking out, and you'll see the trending topic. Folks like, wow. So Jimmy Havoc,
Wow.
B.
Really?
Priestley, Marty Skrull,
Wow.
Dave Christ. I said Jordan Devlin, Ligero, Travis Banks. Those are NXT UK stars. Tiffany, Sexy Star. We already knew Sexy Star was kind of a chancy kind of lady. Teddy Hart, we already knew he was kind of a scumbag. Big
Get
freaking
your
shock
juice
there.
box and go down the road.
Yeah. I'd like to thank all Ace for throwing that video up. Alberto Del Rio, we knew about him.
God, dude, that right there, WTF.
What, with Del Rio?
Oh, God, dude, seriously?
He's a piece of work, man. This is a guy that believes so deeply in his own myth. He kind of reminds me of how Bret used to be back in the day. Bret Hart used to be that guy that he would talk about his situation with WWE and the screw job and how he was just like tortured by it. And it was basically like putting him on the ground and shooting him in the back of the head in front of a live audience. Del Rio's that guy. He's like, I'm all about my gimmick. I am El Patron. No, you're not. You're a performer, man. I respect that you're a performer, but this is the same guy that beat the crap out of Paige, that slapped around a social media.
I can't even respect him as a worker.
Yeah. So I mean, it's these people on this list is crazy. But anyway, so we said Joey Ryan, right, for exposing his junk. And then we get to one that just, this one blows me away. But where there's smoke, as you said, there's fire. And students from Ohio Valley have actually started to share their stories, and they're all matching up to pretty much the same thing. So, Twitter handle at AKI Revolution. This is basically a gentleman who likes WWE No Mercy and WCW versus NWO Revenge, and has basically taken it upon himself to learn how to do modifications to the game to kind of update it for today's roster. So anyway, this person is also a wrestler, or at least was. Apparently, in the time that he started wrestling in Kentucky and trying out for Ohio Valley, he received communication from one Stacy Cornett asking about certain parts of his life, namely his private life, his sex life. It would later come out that they would offer to do favors, such as calling the Kentucky Commission to help keep them off his back if he did some favors for her, or should I say them? Because apparently, as the story goes, I know it's ridiculous.
No, you know what? Look, I'm just going to say this, and I've never told anybody this story ever.
Excuse me.
Diego and I went up north to work for a promotion in New Jersey, and his name was Dennis Carluzzo. You may recognize that name.
Yep.
And Diego and I went there, and we did our little dilly, and I think it was a third or fourth show that we did for him. And he pulled us into the office, and at that time, again, it was the 90s. Don't hold it against me. I don't want the cancel culture. I had employed females from gentlemen's facilities to escort us through the ring. It was part of our gimmick. And I will never forget it because it was one of the most uncomfortable moments of my career. And we got pulled in the office, and he said, make this happen with the females, and we'll make you tag team champions. We'll give you the push of a lifetime. I guarantee you guys will make it to the WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it. And I remember sitting there, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. I heard the stories, they go along with this industry. You have the stories of the WWF with Pat Patterson and things of that nature, and you hear it, but you don't really lend any credence to it until you're faced with it. And I remember sitting there in that moment, and when he said that, I was like, are you serious? What about our work rate? Diego and I had busted our ass up and down the East Coast, driving, 10, 12, 14, 20 hours one way for shitty paydays. Excuse my language. But, we got there, and for that promoter to sit there and say, hey, make sure one of these women do the deal. And, he's gone. I don't want to trample on somebody's grave, but it is what it is. For him to say that, that was one of those moments where I sat there and I was like, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have a way to get the word out there like today, but it was so offensive and so degrading, not only to the women, because they were all awesome. we went out to that club and he said, hey, you want to come be part of this event? And they were like, sure. They didn't expect to go there and become the target for an unscrupulous promoter's wants and desires. And so when that happened, we sat there and I'm like, what does this come to? Where do we go from here? And so I said, dude, that's not something I'm even to entertain the idea of it. And because of that, we didn't get the push, we didn't get the belts, we didn't get whatever. And we were summarily, jobbed out and pushed out of that company. But, looking back at it, I'm kind of proud at the fact that, I didn't go down that route, because it would have been really easy for me to go, okay, sure, and try to work that situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just,
and
again, this is the mid to late 90s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and when did Ohio Valley become a real thing? 2003? A little earlier, maybe? 99?
2002, 2001.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it popped up just after Les Thatcher and Heartland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
funny story about Les Thatcher. Oh, wow. We're going to catch a lot of heat for this one, bro. Diego and I made our way up to Ohio Valley Wrestling. And we got there. We did our ditty. We made the, hey, we want to work for you. And at that point, I was working a cowboy gimmick, which was very similar to the Rhodes.
You were a cowboy?
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Oh, and here's how it started. Back in the mid-90s, I had bleached blonde hair. I had spiked crew cut.
Yep.
And I was doing odd jobs for WCW. And at one of the TV tapings, one of the producers looked at me and said, damn, you look like you could be a Rhodes. And so light bulb went off. And so David Rhodes was born. And so I carried that gimmick for a couple of years, much to Diego's dismay. He hated that gimmick. Everywhere we went, where people were like, hey, aren't you? And he's like, no, damn it, he's not. But I digress. We went our way to Ohio Valley Wrestling. We made our way to Les Thatcher. And we did our spiel. And they looked at us and they said, well, you're a Dustin Rhodes ripoff. And he looked at Diego. At that point, he had a much different gimmick. And they said, you're a Gold Dodgers ripoff. We can't do anything with you.
Jesus.
But the funny thing on that card was the guy that was main eventing that match was an Undertaker carbon copy. He was the Dead Man.
Oh,
I'm going to say it wrong.
Well, back in the day, they had
a Dead Man something. And he had a number of guys that were direct ripoffs of the WWE at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sat there and laughed. I'm like, come on, dude, are you kidding me?
Well, here's where I really melt the brains of all of our, loving fans. So Cornette now apparently is tied up into this scandal where apparently he has basically told performers, so look, if you want a shot from me, you got to do this. And he would sit and watch, which is disgusting.
Cornette?
Stuff. Oh, yeah. Apparently Jim says, if you want to get a shot here, hold
on. I'm not a proponent of Jim Cornette.
Okay.
You know this.
Yeah, I do.
I enjoy his podcast. I've subscribed. I don't agree with a lot of what he says.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm smart enough to know that 99% of what Jim Cornette says is a work.
Okay. And I'll give you that. Except that there's at least 10 stories from different students saying he said this to them, and those that refused got booted out, and those that took him up on it moved up the ladder.
Well, if that's the case, again, if there's smoke, there's fire.
It's crazy.
And, but you know what? I'm not dismissing Jim Cornette or anybody else in this industry. That's always been a part of this industry, right or wrong. I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong, but that's always been a part of this industry. And
it's a part that needs to change.
Oh, absolutely. It needs to change today, yesterday. It needs to change immediately because male, female, it doesn't matter. If they go out there, they need to be judged solely on their work rate and their talent, period. It shouldn't matter if they have a good body or the promoter likes them or wants to do anything else.
Hey, can I add a metric to that?
Sure.
Backstage attitude.
Oh, dude, backstage etiquette is dead. Period. It's been dead. Dude, it's been dead for a long time. I could write a book on that. When I first broke in this business, backstage etiquette conducted of the handshake, you come to the corner, you shut your mouth, and you learn. In today's generation, they look at that sacred handshake as a joke.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm kind of in that camp of like, look, you shake my hand, you don't shake my hand, that's one thing, but you better introduce yourself. I get that. I'm with that. That makes sense.
Well, when I say the handshake, I'm talking about pulling back the fourth curtain.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean.
Particular handshake.
Yeah, a specific way to do it. Yeah.
There's a specific way to do it. In today's generation, they look at it and they go, F that, man handshake. Well, I kind of get it. Times need to change. The handshake doesn't necessarily conduce who you are as a worker. But back in the day, it was a symbol between workers that when you did that handshake, it let that person know, especially because back in the day, we had separate dressing rooms. The babies and the heels were totally separated. There was no sit there and go over your match like there is today.
Oh, geez.
The handshake was a symbol to who you were working as to how that match was going to go. If you shook light, you knew it was an easy night. If that guy walked up and went, you knew you were in for a rough night at the office.
Yeah, and I could see that. I mean, that's important to know that you can trust the person you're working with. It's a dance partner. We all know this. It's a dance partner. You've got to be able to trust that person because they've got your life in their hands. So when that is the case, I agree. And I'm a firm proponent of there's got to be a way to dictate that out. And we live in a world now that's digital. You have social media. You have the way to vet your talents, right? You can see, okay, is this guy good? Is he bad? How does he sell? How does he, insert idea here.
Even that twatter is so toxic. You can't really tell what's going on.
Well, and that's where this whole speaking out movement has started. Now, again, and this is why I think talk radio is so important. PW 24/7 radio here is important because it look, I'm not the authority on opinion. Okay. I just happen to be a guy that has one. And when it comes down to it, this whole movement is hugely helpful because it will expose those that need to be exposed. But at the same time,
and those that need to be exposed should be exposed.
Right.
Period.
But at the same time, there's also this inclination to just hop on a bandwagon and say, like when Enzo Amore got in trouble. Granted, I'm not a big fan of Enzo, right? But he gets in trouble. He gets accused of, what he did.
Okay.
What he was accused of. And then he gets exonerated. And by the time he's exonerated, he's been fired
Well,
from WWE. He's been, kicked out of every wrestling event possible, goes to Ring of Honor and tries to start a shoot angle, gets his tail whipped there.
well, hold on. He may have been exonerated in as much as coming from a law enforcement background, there wasn't enough proof to obtain a conviction. That doesn't mean he was an innocent. And I'm not saying that Nin was guilty by any means. I'm just saying, it is what it is. And
plus,
like you said, he bounced to other federations and he did that Ring of Honor thing. And he didn't do himself any credit by doing that stupid stunt.
Well, and plus the other part of it is, he the best friend of the accuser says, I've got these screenshots of texts, and sure, I'll give her credit. She had it. It was legit text or screenshot she had. But that's what gets him off the hook. But never mind that, because he's already been fired, and he can't get a job anywhere else. And he's gonna make a D-grade rap album that no one's gonna buy because his career is officially in the tank. And all of this happened from this is a girl. This is a fan that went on Twitter and told her story. And so these women that have gone through this, that are speaking up for hashtag speaking out, who we at PW 24/7 Radio, we do support what you ladies are saying.
Oh, absolutely.
None of us are going to judge you. We support you. It takes a whole lot of guts, bravery, balls, however you want to word it, strength to tell your story. The thing is, what I'm seeing, and you mentioned Twitter is kind of a toxic environment, there are now fans that are putting memes and jokes. And, hey, everybody needs to lighten up a little bit here and there. I got you. I'm with you. But some of this, I don't know. Like this Cornette thing. Look, Cornette has always had his finger on the pulse of how to make somebody mad. There'll never be a day where he can't do it. It's just
absolutely. And that being said, I'm not defending Cornette in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
However, Cornette has mastered the art of pissing people off.
Yeah.
And, if a story comes up that's not true, he will be the first person to say, yeah, it's not true, but I went with it because it got me clicks. And I'm not saying anything about any of the women that have come forward. If their story is true, it's true, and he's a piece of
for the record, these are guys.
Oh,
that he positioned positioned where they had to do a favor for Stacy, if you're catching my drift.
Oh, wow.
And he just sat and watched. Know what? I'm sorry. Look, I like him as in his personality. I'm going to give him that credit and respect. But outside of that, the guy's kind of a dick. He's rude to his fans.
Again, I say, is he a dick in real life, or did you just buy the gimmick?
It could be. He could have totally worked me, and I could be stuck.
Oh, absolutely. And the only reason I say this is because my limited time with Jim Cornette, I never saw any of that. Yeah. It doesn't mean that none of these women's stories true, or sorry, you're saying the guys.
Yeah.
I'm not saying none of it's true. I'm just saying that my time with Jim Cornette, I never saw any of that.
My 2 cents.
But I did say that Jim was very keen on if something came up and said, you know what? Jim Cornette said this. Even if it wasn't true, Jim said, you know what? Yep, I said that just to get the clicks.
Here's the thing. So, I met Stacy. I've met her before, and I've met Jim. He was a very nice guy. He signed my Midnight Express book. We talked for a good 30 minutes, just shooting the breeze about the NWA and how he came across their old library.
Really?
I got to tell you, there's no chance in hell. I don't care how cold it is in the winter or how desperate I am in the summer. There's no way in hell you'd catch me anywhere near that situation ever. No alcohol amount, no drug. Well, maybe there's a drug, but
there's no weed on the planet, brother.
Right. No.
Well,
There might be a dollar amount.
It's interesting you say that, because all things being equal, and again, I'm not saying that none of this is true, but in today's culture where everybody jumps on the bandwagon and says, oh yeah, that's true, and there's been a million people that have come forward and said, well, this happened, and then 3, 4, 5 years down the line, they said, that wasn't true. I just said that to getting an attention. And that's a conundrum. Jim, God bless him. I love him, but sometimes he digs his own grave, and, he doesn't do himself any favors with what he says. And so, where do you draw the line of, is that just Jim going along with the storyline? Because at the end of the day, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
And that's what he'd have you believe.
Well, absolutely. And that's what made Vince McMahon a billionaire. There's no such thing as bad publicity. No matter how bad it was, you spin it to your advantage. Now, that's not, again, I'm not saying that none of this is true. And if it's true,
how do you spin this one? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I made him do it. Stacey will attest to it. I mean, first off, you put your wife at that. Like, what? Come on, man.
Well, I mean,
good luck to you, buddy.
Come on, dude. Look, again, I'm not coming to Jim Cornette's defense.
No. What I'm saying is more like a joke than anything else. It's just...
absolutely. But going back to the old days of wrestling, there was a story that roamed around that the reason that the Ultimate Warrior got the push that he got was that Linda got a little taste of the Ultimate Warrior's warrior.
Wow.
Now, was that real?
Is that right up there with Randy Savage and Stephanie? Be honest.
Well, you know what, dude? There's enough out there. That's no longer a story. Come on. It is what it is.
Really?
But, Jeez. Yeah. There's enough people out there that have said as much. Now.
That explains why she inducted him in the Hall of Fame. You know what? And that explains why there's a Warrior Award.
At the end of the day, believe nothing you hear, believe nothing you see, believe nothing you read.
Yeah.
But, that being said, I'm just saying, for years and years and years, people had heard in the industry that were in the know that's why the Ultimate Warrior got his push, was because he was given the Ultimate Warrior to Linda.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it was true, and I'm not saying it was true by any means, but that was the story.
I think he got blew up in 2 minutes or less. I'm just saying. This is
Are you saying he shook the bed sheets and 2 minutes later it was over?
Did he wear face paint? Tell us the truth, Linda. We want to know.
Who knows?
Inquiring minds want to know.
But, those stories, not just Warrior or anybody else, those stories have always been a part of this industry. And at the end of the day, you don't know if they're actually true or were they started from other people just to stir the crap.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, and I don't want to put on a tinfoil helmet here. I just want to say that there's tons of conspiracy theories out there right now, and people are going to try their hardest to paint their own picture, to rewrite their narrative, right? And I get that, because a guy like David Starr, he's out there, and he's a scumbag. It's proven at this point. The stories that are coming out here...
At the very least, he's a scumbag.
Yeah. The story of this guy... it just gets worse. So this is a guy that immensely talented, definitely an able speaker with a microphone, was working to unionize professional wrestling. my friends, you can't speak of the industry that way and have a skeleton in your closet. Because the more that movement grows, somebody's going to unfold it or unearth it. It's going to happen.
The unionization of professional wrestling goes back to the 70s with Jesse Ventura.
Oh, and Hogan too.
Oh, Hogan was the one that squashed it.
Yeah, yeah. But here's the thing. What happened to Jesse Ventura?
He became the governor, and he got a conspiracy theory TV show where millions of Americans can pop on that tinfoil hat.
And it's a big one. It's like the Pope's hat. It's huge.
They can sit there with their tinfoil hat and their 6 foot, how do I put this PG-13, Stan?
Their 6 foot rod.
They can sit there with their 6 foot rod with their cheeseburger going on about what Jesse thinks happened.
Right. But see, that's my point. Jesse Ventura, at the height of his popularity. Now, granted, there's a health scare there where he had a blood clot in his leg and he knew he had to retire. But at the height of his popularity, he's also talking about a union. Rightfully so. At the time, wrestling was, hey, you got hurt. Pick yourself up off the floor and get to the hospital if you can.
Well,
good luck to you.
Well, hold on. First of all, you're assuming that the blood clot thing was real.
That's why it's what he says made him retire.
Okay.
So if it's a work, it's on his behalf.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to go on record and I'm going to say that there are other wrestlers that retired in the middle of a pay-per-view for injuries that were non-existent.
Are you trying to make a stab at Shawn Michaels and as he's lost his smile?
No. Actually, that was another
Everybody
one.
Likes to pick on me for that because I'm such a Shawn Michaels fan.
That was another one, and that's been proven.
Yeah.
The one I'm talking about was in the mid-'90s between Ric Flair and the worker he was working. And unfortunately, the things that happened was in the middle of that match. And this is just my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no reason to doubt it at all. That person was supposed to get the belt from Flair. And literally, in the middle of that pay-per-view, Hogan got signed to that company. And his condition for signing with that company was he had to take the title.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not want to work that person to gain the title.
Yep.
And, that worker, I respect a million miles.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I give it any credence is when you go back to that pay-per-view, when he was done with the match and he walked back to the curtain, that person who was a fresh meat baby face had never done anything to make you think anything but the best of him, actually looked back at the ring and gave the finger.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because, as the story goes, in the middle of the match, the finish of the match was changed via the referee.
That's 94.
Yep. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think I do. You know what we need to do?
When he finished that match, he went back and claimed that he hurt his back,
mm-hmm.
and he cashed in his Lloyd's of London contract.
Mm-hmm.
And to his credit, he never did anything to discredit it.
He was at a point, and I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. We need to do a conspiracy theory show. We need to do it. Dark Side of the Ring has already exposed it. What the hell? Why not, right?
Well, yeah, why not?
So, folks, here, and again, you're hearing us on pw247radio.com. You're going to be hearing this in replay through Grubb's View over on anchor.fm. You'll probably hear the replay of this possibly over on the Diego and Devore show. But what we're talking about
Well,
here.
the only way they're going to hear that on my show is if you show me how to download it and
I'll send you the
do
audio.
what I need to do.
I'll get you the audio. Yeah, no problem. But so what you're hearing here is just, this is what it's all about, right? This is the discussion, the exchange of ideas and opinions on what's happening in our favorite sport, and that's professional wrestling. And yes, I don't care what anybody says. Call it sports entertainment. I'm okay with that. But guess what? It's the sport of professional wrestling. At least that's how I, Stan Grubb, see it. It's
Absolutely.
always going to be that way. Doesn't mean it's not entertaining. Doesn't mean it's not dramatic. Call it what you want. Don't use that F word unless you want to get your fingers broke.
No, hey.
We don't break thumbs.
Look, we're on a groove here. You're not coming to close with this. Seriously?
We only have but so much time.
Dude, look, we're in a lockdown.
I agree.
COVID-19 murder hornets, we got nothing but time.
Yeah.
But where are we going to go after this?
I'm on borrowed time, let me just tell you. But I'll tell you this. I was taught by a very intelligent man to always leave them wanting more.
Oh, absolutely.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we are going to wrap this up because I do, seriously, I got to take care of a couple things. And plus, my office also doubles as a sleeping domicile for somebody that if I don't eventually turn it over, I'm going to get in trouble.
You mean the Hall of Justice behind you is not real?
Shh. No, don't say that. Don't say that. You're going to upset all the millions and the millions of superhero fanatics. I'll say this. You got a dark time in wrestling right now. It's there. What happened past couple days can't come back. You can't take them back. The toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yep.
But here's what I can promise. As long as there's the ability to turn a microphone on and to broadcast an opinion, we'll put the truth out there. We'll tell you about the news. We'll give you our thoughts and opinions. And PW 24/7 Radio will be there for you.
Well, before we go, that being said, you had that analogy of the toothpaste is out of the tube. How is a company, whether it be WWE or anybody else, how do you fix that? Either short-term Band-Aid or long-term.
They're going to have their hands full. I mean, the fortunate part for AEW is they're so new. If they have someone that's been on that list, and I think Jimmy Havoc's the only one, all they got to do is fire him. Sorry. I mean, sorry, not sorry, I guess. You're in the middle of the biggest scandal in wrestling since, maybe since Punk left? Because what bigger scandal has there been going on, seriously, in professional wrestling? It's not the releases for COVID. That wasn't really a scandal. It was just crappy news. Montreal screw job is too far back.
What's the deal with Jimmy Havoc?
So Jimmy Havoc's on that list.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, no. I wish I was.
I'm a dinosaur. Oh, God.
Yeah.
What did he do?
So the description I've seen, and I've read a couple of accounts, these are from both of these accounts were from ex-girlfriends, apparently, where Jimmy Havoc was in the midst of a substance abuse problem and was drinking a lot.
A pro wrestler with a substance abuse problem.
Yeah, it never happens.
Hold on. Let me show me a shock face.
Right. It never happens. But apparently he was drunk and hammered and was verbally abusive, physically abusive. And both women pretty much tell the same story. Tough night at the office, gets back from a rough match, cursing and complaining about the guy he was in the ring with. Turns into, well, you're a stupid B, you're a dirty C, and then proceeds to get into their face and stuff.
Wow.
But here's the thing. Even in today's social justice warrior or cancel culture, which I hate, by the way, you have to do the right thing. So your question's valid. AEW, for him, they fire him. Sorry, man. You're too nuclear hot right now. We can't put you on television. So either you bury him, right, on TV, and then you leave him off TV for at least 6 months. So he can either be proven to be innocent or he can just decide to leave. If you're WWE, you fire them. Like Jordan Devlin, he's done. Ligero, Travis Banks, Joe Coffey, they're done. And they should be, because these guys are, they're scumbags. But
absolutely,
here's the problem. NXT UK is a really pretty new still. There's a lot of guys on this roster that are on this list. Now, with all the finance issues that this company has had, and they've had a lot, and with what's about to come loose with this lawsuit about Saudi Arabia, man, I would not want to be in Vince's shoes. I would not want to be in Hunter or Stephanie's shoes, because right now, man, you're just sitting there. And even when you're doing nothing, man, you're getting the crap knocked out of you. Vince is probably like, I can't win.
Could that be why they just released the free version of the WWE Network?
It wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't, because these guys are taking a beating, whether it's ratings, whether it's, viewership
I don't mean to drag this out at all, but I am so tired of the ratings talk. The ratings talk was valid during the 90s and the 2000s. Ratings today don't mean anything because of the DVR, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's and I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're a WWE fan or you're an AEW fan. The toxic culture of Twitter that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They make this that, oh God, AEW had 35,000 more people than WWE. They're going down. Well, nobody cares about ratings anymore. And they don't understand that. And I call them re-smarks. They don't understand it. The live numbers of the ratings don't mean anything because of DVR and, the other platforms. It doesn't mean what it meant back in the 90s with the Monday Night Wars, where you didn't have a DVR. It was, and I can only speak from my experience. When we went out there on Nitro, the pep talk, it wasn't a pat on the ass, go out there and do the best you can. It was, you got the pat on the ass, you have to go out there and produce some numbers, or you didn't get your job next week. And that went from talent enhancement all the way up. That's when ratings mattered. Today's numbers, the ratings, it doesn't matter. And I'm sorry I sidetracked on this, but it just drives me crazy because all these people jump on there and they're like, oh my God, the ratings on this week, they had 38 more thousand people than the other company. I'm like, okay, but what happens 4 days later when they're releasing numbers for the people that DVR'd it?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing. Like the ratings, if you're looking at them for results, the results you want to see is total growth. Yeah, okay, AEW won this week, NXT wins next week, or whatever the case may be. I'm pretty sure AEW's got that on lock, and I'm okay with that. But
and I am too. AEW, and I'll say this all day long. They have a product visually that is more appealing than NXT.
Right. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you're looking at ratings, it's about the total viewership. And the reason I say that is you have to have an audience to perform for. And Raw on Monday, SmackDown on Friday, their viewership is going down. They're under 2 million viewers for both shows almost every week. Now, Wednesday's audience size, when AEW Dynamite, and we were there for the debut,
yep,
they did over 2 million.
Tremendous show.
It was. They delivered in all sorts of ways. They did over 2 million just by themselves, which was great. And NXT on the same night did just over 1 million. So it was a thumping, that's for sure, if we're looking at ratings. But it was the total audience size.
But that being said, of course, AEW would have a huge bump over NXT, strictly for the curiosity factor.
Right.
Of course, they're going to have a number of people that are like, hey, this is shiny, this is new, let me look at it. But what you just said about Raw with their declining numbers, of course they're declining. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
How many times can you watch an empty arena match before you lose interest?
Yeah.
And, I mean, you know, to their credit, one of the things, you know, everybody jumped on the bandwagon. They were like, oh, this is the most horrible thing I've ever seen. But one of the things that I actually give them credit for was this last pay-per-view, Orton and Edge. They piped in the sound of the audience. And, you know, part of it was for the workers because that was pumped into the building. And the other part was for the fans. Now, looking at it from a fan standpoint, and only from a fan standpoint, not from, I've been in the business, you know, I have this knowledge. But from the fan standpoint, and only from the fan standpoint, that match, and look, all things being equal, it wasn't the greatest wrestling match ever. It was good, but it wasn't the greatest. But the reason that it stood out was because the piped in noise. And it allowed the fan to forget. And this is, you know, this isn't my opinion, this is the truth. As you watch that match with the piped in noise, you kind of forgot that the arena was empty. You didn't really care that there was nobody in that building. You concentrated on the match, which was epic. And when I say epic, the match itself wasn't epic, but the fact that the noise that they produced, even though it was artificial, it took your mind off the fact that there was nobody in the building. And you forgot that as a fan. You know, when didn't matter what it was, whether it was a clothesline or a pile driver, whatever, you heard the pop and you forgot, even if it was just that millisecond, you forgot that arena was empty and you were allowed to buy into that match, which was huge. And you know, to AEW's credit, they've been doing that for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah, and that's you know, the Backlash, that pay-per-view itself, which flew by.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it flew by.
Hey, I'm a huge WWE fan, but I'll admit they crapped the bed on that pay-per-view.
Yeah, and I mean, the event itself flew by. You get to that match, and first off, and we are going to have to close out with this, but first off, that match starts, and people hear the crowd noise pumped in, and they're like, oh, this is going to suck. And I followed it on Twitter pretty close because I'm watching it, and I have a Twitter feed pulled up, and I'm just kind of looking, and as the match goes further and further along, you start seeing the fans and the wrestling meet. And then they both go back up, and everybody's like, wow, this isn't so bad. And then next thing you know, you're seeing people like, damn, this might be the greatest wrestling match ever. Right. And that's all WWE wanted, was they just want you to buy in just a little bit so that you can say, maybe this is. And I'm not a Randy Orton guy. I don't think I ever will be. But I think what we saw from Randy – and what we saw on Monday, the night after, was the Randy Orton that a lot of people were like, "That's the guy." Because that punt, that punt is simple.
Because what you just said, you know, you started the match and the match was here.
Yeah.
And, as they brought it up with the feed, the pumped in feed, it came here. And at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with Randy. It had nothing to do with Edge.
Right.
At the end of the day, it was a fan interaction.
Yeah.
They bought into what was going on. And kudos to them for that, because I said that from the get-go. They whether it was pumped in feed through the audio speakers, or they had the LED screens where you had fans going crazy with the yeah. That was something they needed to do. And again, I say AEW was ahead of the game on that, because for weeks and weeks and weeks, they brought the talent out there, the extras, the camera crew, whatever, and they provided that extra soundtrack that made you forget that the arena was empty.
Well, plus they're just more willing to take chances. And that, when we were talking initially about the ratings, and this is, I guess, how we'll end out. It's all about the total amount of people watching. So what we saw at the debut was, of course, just like you said, a huge boost, right? TNT and USA, to their credit, saw a pretty good boost and a lift.
TNT
is what airs Dynamite.
Really?
So, yeah, TNT. Dynamite's on TNT. NXT's on USA.
Hey.
There we go. Bringing him up.
Whiskey.
Yeah, right. A little bit. 3 fingers in.
Five.
So we saw that lift.
Oh, God, you're right. TNT.
Yeah. So we saw the lift, and we saw it drop back down. And now what we're seeing is true audience growth. Because now you're seeing the true number, which was probably about 650,000 on the average for both sides. Now it's over 7. Now it's over 750. And pretty soon it's going to be over 8. Once you get past 8, the average wrestling audience Monday, Wednesday, or Friday is about 1.6 million right now. If you can grow past 1.6, now you're moving the needle. You're right. Ratings, they only matter but so much. But what really matters is your total audience. Your total audience is what's going to put you where you want to be. Whether you're AEW or WWE, it's the total amount of people consuming wrestling. Just like for us, we measure success by the total amount of people listening to PW 24/7. Whether it's Corner to Corner, or the Diego and Devore show, or UCW Radio, or any of the other shows that we bring on the network, it's all about how many people are listening completely. And that's what we want.
That being said, Corner to Corner with almost 3,000 downloads is a huge number.
It is. We're very happy with the audience we have. They love us, by the way, in China. Did I mention that? They love us in China.
In China?
Oh, my God.
Dude, I was looking at analytics earlier today. You guys are big in United States, Canada, Japan, Denmark, the UK. I mean, it's crazy.
Any of those cool hostels in Denmark?
Well,
that's a story for another time.
I look, to protect the names of the innocent, I'm not going to say anything, but
so you can catch up with Mr. Devore. Tell him where they find you,
Devore.
Devore.
You can catch me on Facebook at ucwforever.com. Our podcast, which I'm really proud of, and God bless you, Stan. You've been an integral part of this process. You've not only helped us, specifically helped me, because I'm a dinosaur. I suck at technology. And I'm the first to admit that. No, dude, seriously. For years and years and years, I thought about doing a podcast, but I was always like, I was worried what people would think. And then about a month, 3 weeks ago, Diego came to me and he's like, hey, what about doing a podcast? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, with the way 2020 is going, let's do it. Not only to keep the UCW brand alive, but the talent out there that is suffering. Let's get them a platform where we can go out there, we can get these talent that are working on the independent level and give them a way to connect with the audience and, hopefully sell some merchandise down the road, but to keep their name alive in general. And, I can't say enough about you personally, because when I started this whole project with Diego, you know, anything past power, I was a retard on. And
For those of you at home in the non-PC crowd,
oh, well,
mentally
yeah,
challenged.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said retard. My bad. But, all bullshit aside, I was not a technological wizard. Anything past the power button, I had a real learning curve to learn. And with we sat there many a night at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Hey, teach me this. And because of that, I'll forever be eternally grateful for your wisdom and teaching an old dog new tricks.
Well, I appreciate that. We're
you can
only
reach
as
us
good
on Facebook at the Diego and Devore Show, Twitter at Diego and Devore Show. Look, I really don't want to plug me or what we're doing. I would rather plug 24/7 wrestling radio.
Yeah, PW 24/7 Radio. You can find us on Facebook at PW 24/7 Radio. Find us on Twitter at PW 24/7 Radio. PW 24/7 Live will be airing. Our goal would be every week, at least once a week, to discuss just the news that is. Of course, Corner to Corner on the roster, the Diego and Devore Show on the roster, UCW Radio on the roster. We are looking for good podcasts. We are looking for good shows that want to take the next step, want to go to the next level. Let's broadcast you live. Let's get you engaged with your audience. Hit us up.
Absolutely.
Hit us up.
If you're a worker, speaking from another worker's standpoint, if you're a worker, you have a podcast, come talk to us.
Yep.
Inbox us. Let's get your podcast on our platform. And there's no minimum subscription.
Nope.
There's no bars you got to meet. There's no levels you got to meet. Just put your podcast on our platform.
And that is going to do it for the maiden voyage of PW 24/7 Live. Folks, I'm Stan Grubb. He is Lord Everett Devore. And we will see you next time right here at PWS247radio.com, where we are Wrestling Radio Evolved.
Thank you so much, Stan.